Here we are, just the two of us this week, at least to start, without the third wheel, right?
That's always, as always.
Always without the third wheel. So, no, man, I've been looking forward to this live stream. I mean, obviously, Oklahoma's played another game. That weekend of college football was awesome. The rumors are swirling on the recruiting trail. Kids are trending to Oklahoma. Kids are trending away from Oklahoma. I feel like there's a lot to talk about. I felt like last week there wasn't a whole lot, considering weren't really any marquee games, and Oklahoma played Tulsa. I don't know. What do you think?
I agree. The weekend slate was much better, and I think it's because we knew it was going to be good, so there was a little bit of excitement rather than the week before. But then this week, you've got good matchups again. I have an Oklahoma home game, which means Oklahoma recruiting. So that's big news for OU, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then, you've had people support Oklahoma and start talking about them as maybe they could be for real this year. Then you've had others that are just can't get out of their own way and still think it's Oklahoma from last year and think OU still sucks. You're never going to please everyone, but it's baffling when you go on Twitter or, if you're someone that watches YouTube a lot, some shows still, talk about Oklahoma not being very good. Namely, I'm sure everyone has seen the small clip from the Unnecessary Roughness, the Barstool podcast, and Brandon Walker saying OU still sucks. And then you also have Twitter, like people that love to be keyboard warriors and saying Dylan Gabriel is terrible. He overthrows everything. And, I don't really know what some people expect after these quarterbacks. I think for the most part, unless you just really hate Caleb Williams and USC, most people can acknowledge he's probably the best quarterback in the country right now. Overthrew plenty when he was at Oklahoma, at USC last year, at USC this year in this last game against Arizona State. Overthrew his fair share. You're going to overthrow. You're going to be inaccurate sometimes. But Dylan Gabriel is probably one of the more accurate quarterbacks in college football, and people still give him shit about it.
Yeah. And actually, I am surprised how many people from California we've got that are Sooner fans. That's pretty darn impressive, all the way from the Bay Area, San Diego, everything in between. So that's pretty cool to see. But I got one question for you. Did you know that Taylor Swift went to a Chiefs game this weekend? Have you seen that anywhere?
Oh, I'm well aware. It's everywhere. Look, I'm not the biggest Swiftie, but she is everywhere. The whole thing with her and Travis Kelce, and those stats that came out today after her being there on Sunday, his jersey sales going up so much. The NFL Twitter and all that stuff they were posting about her, it's insane the effect she's got.
Dude, I don't follow anything Taylor Swift, and I haven't seen anything Taylor Swift on any of my feeds until this weekend. And now I've got this crossover of everything's Taylor Swift, and it's like, oh my gosh, enough already. I get it. I didn't realize how big of a following she had. I knew she was big, but my gosh, there are some diehard fans. I thought I loved football in Oklahoma a lot. There's some people that love her probably more than I love Oklahoma football. So we don't have to drown on that. But it's just insane. I'm ready for it to kind of blow over. We can actually move on. So
who knows? Apparently she might be going to the game this weekend. And then you got to bet the Chiefs to cover the spread.
Yeah, well, it's bad whenever you're the team that's invite your girlfriend to the game because you're going to score and win. That inviting her to the Bears game and probably inviting her to the Jets game in New York would probably be another invite your girlfriend to the terrible matchup game to make it look good. So
you have to.
Yeah, for sure. But no, recapping some games last weekend, not just Oklahoma, but just a few I want to touch on. Did you watch that Notre Dame Ohio State game?
Yeah, fantastic game. Marcus Freeman and the defensive staff and the defense forgot to count apparently, and it screwed me. both in our bets and in real life bets, because I had the under for that game, and I was very confident Notre Dame could win. And I still think that they should have won. Outside of that final play of the game, there's plenty of scoring opportunities that they just missed out on in the first half. But that was, it's a hell of a game. And then I guess Ryan Day just doesn't like old men, specifically Lou Holtz.
Yeah, so that was a great game. Colorado finally is back to earth. About what you'd expect. I've picked Colorado, or I picked Oregon minus 21 and a half, whatever it was. Not because I don't like Colorado, because I think Deion Sanders is great for the sport, and I think what he said is, you better get me now because this is the worst it's going to be. I 100% agree with that, because I think, not that Colorado is going to win championships, national championships year in and year out, but they will compete for the Big 12 title with Deion Sanders there whenever they're in conference. But it's about what you'd expect without Travis Hunter. There's not much depth. Oregon's a good team. It's not, Brandon does not like Colorado, but it's about what you'd expect.
Yeah. And I think he's right. This is kind of definitely the year where he's gonna suck against these big schools. But he's really got to do some recruiting. His recruiting, so far, Colorado recruiting is an amazing. When you look at who they've added through the high school ranks, I think he really intends on using the portal when that opens up later in the year. So he's really it's still a guessing game if that happens. It's going to be a long time. But you're right. For some reason, the schools that are remaining in the Big 12 haven't taken that seriously enough. They have the advantage of they have more depth, they have more talent, they can start running the Big 12 when Oklahoma leaves, because Texas hasn't been shit for years. So really, they're just losing a brand when it comes to Texas leaving. And none of them have really stepped up to try to take over. Kansas State, they're going to be there. I think they're always really going to be a decent team and could be competing for the Big 12 every so often. You look at Oklahoma State. They somehow went from being an okay team, not that long ago, 5-6 years ago. Now I think it's fair to say they're the worst team in the Big 12, and there's no light at the end of the tunnel for those guys. And then Baylor was riding a super high with Dave Aranda a couple years ago. Now they don't look as good as they used to. Iowa State looks terrible. The Big 12 is wide open once Oklahoma and Texas leave. This year I think you've got Oklahoma and Texas. I don't think any other school has really shown to compete with those two. Maybe K-State, but kind of inconsistent there as well.
Yeah, and another team that's coming in the Big 12 is Utah. And Utah, without Cam Rising, they play some defense. Holding Chip Kelly to 7 points in that UCLA game. So Utah's a strong team that could very well come in and compete year in and year out with Kansas State and those programs like that. Another game that kind of stood out in my mind. It wasn't the highest ranked matchup by any means. It wasn't even a ranked opponent, at least this past weekend. Kansas and BYU, and I understand BYU. They were 3-0 going in this game. Same with Kansas, and I get the opponents and all this stuff, the quality of opponents. And Oklahoma hasn't played great quality opponents either. So BYU beat Arkansas, and Arkansas went toe to toe with LSU, and LSU's not a bad team. Kansas had their way with BYU, and I'm not putting Oklahoma on upset alert, but Oklahoma does go to they go to both. They go to Provo and go to Lawrence later this year. Those are both going to be very tough games, and I'm not saying Kansas is going to beat Oklahoma, but I do think that's going to be a true test and probably a top 25 matchup the way that Kansas is looking. And a little preview to the betting, I think Kansas is like a 18-point underdog or something like that the last time I saw it going to play Texas. Man, I'm taking Kansas plus the points. I can't remember the exact number, but they are big underdogs going on the road at Texas. I think Kansas keeps it closer than most people think. I think they're a better team than a lot of people.
It's more than likely because they're on the road. Can't imagine why, especially after they looked as good as they did against BYU. And again, BYU is not world beaters by any means, but they're not a terrible football team.
No, they're definitely not. And so, another game that I was thinking of, this will tie into kind of a next segment, is Florida State, Clemson. That was a great game. I took Clemson +2. I thought they would win, and they had opportunities to do that. But with that loss, and with their second loss of the season, the rumors are coming out of the woodwork as far as their commitments and their recruits right now, with more specifically in Bryant Wesco, the 5-star wide receiver that at one point, I think I agree, I expected him to be a part of this class, and I would imagine you expected at some point too that he was going to be part of this class, and obviously that trended away from Oklahoma. Do you put any stock in that, the rumor? I mean, I just have a hard time believing at this point with how many receivers they've got committed, potentially Terry Boosie. I mean, of course, Wesco's got a spot no matter what, but how legitimate is that?
I mean, I think you're going to have rumors all year because Clemson isn't going to be, probably won't be a 10-win team this year. And who knows, might struggle to be a 9-win team. But I don't think they're really going to lose either of those big-time recruits because, for the most part, the same way that Brent Venables recruits to Oklahoma, Clemson recruits to, or Dabo recruits to Clemson. Like, it's you're not coming here because, you were going to play winning football, but there's more to Clemson than just winning football games. Like, kind of similar to the Soul Mission. I don't really know what theirs is called, but there's a lot more to how they sell being a Clemson football player, a student at Clemson. More than likely, these are just rumors. Like, maybe later down the line, if it gets really bad and their offense looks terrible. But, their offense they made mistakes, but they didn't look terrible. For the most part, that team is really young. New OC, they'll be fine. And anyone that really thinks, I'm sure they'll lose a couple. It's not insane to assume they're going to lose a couple recruits, between now and December. But hitting that, as people looking at Clemson from the outside, basically thinking that they're going to lose all those highly recruited talent is assuming that last year Oklahoma should have lost everyone that they ended up recruiting. They got 3 5-stars, plenty of very good 4-stars, and some underrated guys as well. Clemson's going to do the same. They're having a terrible year. The Clemsoning thing is back for now. Obviously, Dabo needs to fix that, and it seems like the more Brent Venables is gone, they are starting to see that effect when it comes to mistakes on the defensive side of the ball. But they're still a decent team. I don't think by any means at this point they have a chance to win their conference. Even with Florida State struggling against Boston College, and they beat them in overtime, even though they needed overtime. Florida State is still there. Miami, who knows if they're for real, but we'll find out here soon because they're going to start getting to their meat of their schedule. They still have to play Boston College, I'm pretty sure. So there's still plenty of challenges in front of Clemson, and I don't know if they're really going to be, going for having an undefeated season from here on out. Probably going to lose a couple, but they got to sell those kids on. We need you, especially a guy like Bryant Wesco. Their offense is good, but they don't have a go-to weapon. It's very similar to the issue at Alabama. They don't have that guy on the outside that they can go to. And Oklahoma did it last year, and it's probably a little bit of the struggles of why we saw it. But now OU has Andrew Anthony starting to emerge as the number one guy. Bryant Wesco can be sold on that. You will be the number one guy because he is, probably one of the more talented, if not the most talented wide receivers in this class. He has the opportunity to be the number one wide receiver as a true freshman, gets plenty of playing time as a true freshman over there versus OU. Yeah, he'll definitely have a spot here and probably going to get just as much playing time. But you also get 6 other guys coming in your wide receiver recruiting class. And then next year, you already have 3 guys lined up and probably 1 or 2 more added on to the 2025 class. The wide receiver depth is just fine at Oklahoma, while Clemson's got those opportunities more Like they can show it because they don't have that many guys coming in at his position.
And the only difference between, Oklahoma, I'm not the only difference, but a major difference between Oklahoma and Clemson in these positions, last year, at least Brent Venables could basically say, well, I just got here. I'm reshaping the culture. I'm getting my guys in. This is what I see us being in the next 2 years, and you've got to be a part of that to get us there. The problem with Dabo is he's been there for so long. They've been at the top of college football, and now it seems like they're coming back to earth, to some degree. You lose Brent Venables, you're kind of trying to figure things out. Can you hold on to him? And I think they will. I mean, at the end of the day, they'll probably lose some, but at the end of the day, there's only so many spots in the Power Five that you can go play, Saturdays for and play a high-level college football. And Clemson is one of those programs that gives you a shot to go play for a national title year in and year out. At least in the last 10 years, they've been able to do that. You just can't leave. I mean, that spot, that middle linebacker spot for Sammy Brown or that wide receiver spot, there's plenty of wide receivers that get drafted from Clemson. You can list off DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Williams, all those guys that have gotten pulled from there. You're going to have plenty of opportunities to go in the NFL. You're going to have plenty of opportunities for NIL. You're going to be able to play big-time college football and probably be, more times than not, a shoo-in into the playoffs. Now it's going to 12 teams. It's going to be you, Florida State, and Miami. And generally, Miami is a fraud, and I don't know how much, how back is Florida State. They seem pretty good. It seems like, they've got it figured out down there. I don't think recruits care as much about wins and losses as long as it's not a train wreck. Mm-hmm. Because in their mind, they're like, well, if we get this class, a top 5 class in, we can fix that. And they're just missing me, and I have an opportunity to play rather than going, sitting on the bench somewhere just because they won this past year. Winning's important, but when it comes to dollars and playing time and getting in the NFL, a lot of times that takes precedence over some of that other stuff.
And Dabo's still there. I think as long as he's there, those kids are more than likely going to stay put. But he's probably also going to be a little bit of the problem. Like, he hates using the transfer portal. Not a big NIL fan. He's got to do a little bit of an adjustment. I mean, we saw Brent Venables when he first got hired. It didn't seem like he really took well. Wasn't a fan of the portal, but now he uses it as needed. You got to use it because it's there. It sucks that you lose guys to it, but you also got to utilize it to your advantage and bring guys in where you need them for their talent, their depth, their leadership, experience, whatever reason you need them for. Then NIL, these kids are going to get paid. Like it or not, they're going to get money. And Clemson, I'm sure they have a collective that's going to get them paid, but if he doesn't embrace it, it's going to make it less and less appealing for some of these kids to even entertain the idea of Clemson. Now, it's not going to make it impossible for them to recruit, but you got to at least you got to suck it up.
If you don't, this is just life in general. If you don't adapt to new things and technology and trends, you're going to be left in the dust. And it's evident what's going on at Clemson is a product of non-adapting quick enough. And Brent Venables, credit to him, being willing to be flexible and realizing, man, maybe this isn't working. That's almost takes a bigger person to realize that, acknowledge it, and fix and change it. I think that says a lot about the character and what you're willing to try to win, right?
Look at our little brothers down in Stillwater.
Oh, yeah.
Gundy hates all of it with burning passion, and that place is imploding. I don't know. That guy should get fired. They probably won't fire him, but it's getting bad.
Oh, it seems like finally the fan base is starting to realize what's happening. And they are a special kind of bad. And there was a question in here, who gets fired first, Gundy, Aranda, or Campbell?
They might all go at the same time.
I don't know. Golly, part of me thinks that Campbell is probably the safest guy. believe it or not. That sounds really weird, but I
Just
feel
because
like
of the gambling stuff? Because he lost a lot of guys to that.
that he doesn't have his quarterback, and then he just lost Brock Purdy, and they put a bunch of guys. I just think there's a lot of things stacked up against him, and then he just won a game this weekend too. I mean, they're gonna win, probably go 5-7, 6-6, somewhere in there. I like Matt Campbell a little bit better. I don't know, Dave Aranda. At one point, he was. I mean, and Campbell were the two hottest names in college football to be gobbled up by a bigger program, and now here we are. Aranda signed an extension, and then Campbell signed an extension, and getting a little.
If Dave Aranda doesn't get fired, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a defensive analyst position in Norman he can take, because it would not suck to have that guy on the staff.
No, definitely not. So,
real quick, talking about things that don't suck, our shirts dropped today. Here's the front. This was the mock-up, so here's the front. Let me see. Let me turn around here. I don't know if you can see that. It's kind of far away.
Yeah, you can see it. Oh,
Gamedays Norman.
Yep.
Link in the description. Go get your t-shirt. It's only $24 for the long sleeve, and I think 27 or 28 or 24 for the short sleeve, 27 or 28 for the long sleeve. So very affordable, I would say. Nice t-shirts, very soft, cool design, both in this color and in gray.
Yeah, I forgot to grab mine. I've got it in my closet, so no, I definitely go check that out. You said that's in the description, right?
Yes.
All right, so definitely go check that out. I don't know why I forgot that. That's live now, right? Can you?
It is very much so live here. I'll try to pull it up to show on the interweb here.
Yeah.
Where'd my email go?
And while we've got everyone talking about this, shameless plug, right? So we're 70 subscribers away from 6,000. If you're new here, or if you've been here a handful of times, hit the subscribe button. It's easy, free. It helps us out a lot. Turn the notification bell on so when we go live for live streams, post regular videos, and everything else in between. Turn that notification bell on. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Spotify, and TikTok. Everything's linked in the description below. And remember, you're obviously here, but we start at 8:30 p.m. Central. 8:30-ish, I guess you could say, a few minutes after 8:30.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to our friend Sammy and his t-shirt company, Red Dirt T-Shirts. You can go on here. He's starting to get some Halloween stuff up. He's got some game day stuff. He's the one that had the pink out the palace shirts at the beginning of the year that we plugged for game 1. Let's go on here. Here's the white one. You can see the gray one as well. Here's a short sleeve. Easy to order. And I think you get them in like a week or two. I can't remember exactly, but you'll get them quick.
For sure. So be sure to do that. Link in the description below. So I don't know if Brandon's going to be able to join us tonight. He's got busy, bigger and better things to do. So let's, what do you want to start talking about here? Should we take a question or two? Should we start talking about what we've got coming up in football or what?
We have a recapped OU's game.
True.
So I think we should touch on that. Because Oklahoma, look, the offense didn't look great. But the defense is starting to look more and more real every week. We talked about it in our preview. Like, Emory Jones was the biggest threat, right? His legs. And yeah, he made some plays. I mean, the 3rd and 19 that he converted, unacceptable. But outside of that big run, it was contained for the most part. Danny Stutzman every week seems to just get better and better. I think this last weekend, I can't remember, he had 13 tackles on the day, a sack, a couple for loss. I mean, dude is a beast. And then PJ Adebore, I don't know if you saw Venable's press conference, but we're going to see him a lot more as the year goes on. He said it. I mean, we've started to see him more and more every game. But that dude is going to be special.
There's a reason why he's a 5-star, or he was a 5-star. It just seems like every week he's getting more of an opportunity, more potential. Just can you imagine what he's going to be like in the next year? I mean, I don't want to skip this year because Oklahoma looks good, but just thinking about his potential and what some of these young guys could end up becoming, this defense, I mean, they're giving up 8.5 points a game. And I don't care who they're playing. They could be playing Union High School. And the last 10 years, there is in no world that Oklahoma's giving up 8.5 points a game against anyone.
And it's not like OU is the only team that's played bad teams to start the season. 90% of the Power 5 schools play smaller schools, not as talented schools to start off the year. But they're not all holding these. They have one shutout, and then they've only allowed, 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns all year? That people aren't doing that.
Yeah, it's 1 to SMU and 3 to Tulsa, maybe? No, 2 to Tulsa.
2 to Tulsa.
Yeah, 2 to Tulsa and none to Cincinnati. So only 3 touchdowns. And I would argue that one of the touchdown drive for SMU was aided by the refs. But still, I mean, they're getting some pressure. They're figuring it out as far as the defense goes. Unfortunately, the injury bug a little bit on the defense, with Harrington not being out there, and it seems like he might be gone for the year, just depending on how everything ends up working out for him. But they look good. And it was the first time where I really felt comfortable, like this offense is struggling, and that's fine. But I felt comfortable where it was like Oklahoma's been in control of this game the entire game. I started to not feel really nervous if we had to punt because I felt like our defense would hold up, and they did. And I think they're going to do the same thing this weekend too. I mean, they should.
I felt nervous, mostly when we had to punt because we got to fix that. But the offense, first half, not great. Second half was better, still not great. Finally, in the second half, they were finally able to run the freaking ball. So that's still definitely becoming more of a problem. And I still firmly believe it's because they don't have a guy that's established himself yet as the number one. And to an extent, I do think that's still a little bit on the coaches. The guys need to do their part and prove that they belong on the field. You also can't punish them for one bad week of practice. Tawi Walker's played well every game that he's played in, but this last week he gets punished because maybe not punished, but Marcus Major gets rewarded with more carries because he had a better week of practice. I think that's kind of backwards. You're not in no level of football. If your better player has a slightly bad week of practice, you're going to let his backup play more. Adrian Peterson didn't get punished if he had a bad week of practice in college or in the NFL. I'm not saying that Tawi or Marcus or Javante or Gavin are Adrian Peterson, but if he's the better back, you got to give him a little bit of grace if he's got one bad week of practice. If it's consistently bad, then I get it. It's sports. You got to show that you can do well in practice to earn some playing time. But this teeter-tottering of, okay, well, he's had a better week of practice, so we should give him more carries this week. Okay, now this guy's had a better week of practice, so he should get more carries. I think at this point, coaches know this guy's the better back overall. Maybe if he has a bad week of practice, he gets 16 carries and the backup gets 12, and it's a little bit more even. Now, when he gets a better week, he'll have 20 and backup gets 10 or something. You got to let someone establish themselves.
It's bizarre. I mean, how does Javante Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk, how do they not have a carry in this game? But the week before against Tulsa, they both, they played. I don't, the theory is, and there was a comment here saying that, there's a theory going around that they're saving Javante Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk for Texas. And I don't think so, because if you hide these players and you're not getting them game time, that's hindering them. I don't think that's like a secret weapon that's an advantage to Oklahoma. There seems to be more to it, and I don't know, this seems to be more of a, running back by committee, which is totally fine. That's how Oklahoma's operated in the past, and it's worked out great for them, with Mixon and P. Ryan and, players like that and previously where they got their 1 and 2. But they don't normally run 1, 2, 3, 4. They don't have this running back by committee with 4 players. That's too many players, too few carries to go around. There's got to be more to it, and it's bizarre, and I don't understand it. I just don't know how you can't keep all these guys involved, or at least pick 2, maybe a third one. And make sure Gavin Sawchuk and Javonte Barnes are extra, give them extra time, make sure they're healthy. And I don't know if that's part of the deal, is we're ramping them up because they've been dealing with injuries. We play them for a week, give them 2 weeks off and things like that. Could that be a theory that they're thinking, well, we need to give them 2 weeks before they play in each game? Maybe. I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't buy at all that this is like some sort of secret weapon, especially not Javonte Barnes. He played a lot last year. Texas has tape on him. It's not like he's going to just surprise them. He's not going to come out of the game and, it's not peekaboo. They know who Javonte Barnes is, as much as Texas fans like to pretend they don't know who's on this OU roster. They know Javonte Barnes. Gavin Sawchuk, I could see maybe a little bit, and he still is recovering from some off-season stuff. But if he's, you like you said, you have to give them time to knock off some of that rust. And if they're not playing, like they got to play this weekend to assume they'll get any playing time for the Texas game. And even still, if they play this weekend, like you said, they were the lead backs in the Tulsa game and then got no plays this last weekend against Cincinnati. Got to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, part of me thinks that this was a big week. This week will tell you what Oklahoma's going to do with the running back situation for the rest of the year, because the first 2-3 games, first 3 games you're playing against small schools, and you should be able to, you're figuring things out. I do wonder if it's going to be the Tolly Walker Marcus Major show until otherwise, proven otherwise, because I bet they roll them out against Iowa State, because those are the 2 guys that are going to play against Texas. I really do wonder that if they're going to roll both these guys out, and they're the guys, and until something goes wrong, they get hurt, or they're not producing. I really do wonder if these are the 2 guys that they're going to roll with, and then no touches for Barnes and Sawchuk.
Which would be pretty disappointing, in my opinion. I get it that, at the end of the day, the coaches see them every day. But we've seen what Marcus Major is for a while. He can make plays, but he can also screw up, like on Saturday during the game. That first fumble from Dylan Gabriel, he should have slid earlier, but he was trying to get the first down. If Marcus Major blocks that defensive back, good chance that Dylan gets a little bit of, an extra second to react and protect that ball a little bit better, and maybe gets to get to the first down. The lateral that he had, that was just a dumb play, just bad awareness. I don't think you haven't seen that be a frequent problem with them. And then Tolly Walker only got 5 carries this last weekend. Mm-hmm. But when he touched the ball, he looked well. He looked like he was making plays with it. You gotta, I don't know, I just think, I don't think he's a bad football player, but they've given Marcus Major too much grace, in my opinion, and it's starting to look like it in the running game. Really bad performance last weekend. You got to figure it out for the next 2 weekends at least. Get someone into a rhythm. And DeMarco Murray isn't dumb. He played football himself. He played a really high level of football in college and in the NFL. Was at one point considered the best running back in the NFL or in one of the top for a couple years. He knows that he needs a rhythm. If he only gets 5 carries one week and then 15 carries the next, it's going to be a little bit hard to, get into that rhythm early when he only gets a few carries.
And that's the truth. I mean, there has to be a method to their madness, and that's why they get paid the big bucks, and we're not coaches. We're just from the couch making these observations. I mean, there's a reason, and I don't know. I think the frustrating part is we just don't know why and what the overall plan is. And that's, I think, what drives me nuts is if I just knew what the plan was, all right, sounds good. Let's move forward. But I really think that it just is telling you that going into conference play, those are our 2 guys until proven otherwise. So,
And Urban, I'm not even going to pronounce that second name. Marcus Major having 2 big runs and then having him brought back. I don't remember them, to be completely honest. I'm assuming they were brought back due to holding calls. But you can also kind of, if the holding was on the side of the field he ran through, did the holding actually help him create those big plays? Was it like that one hold opened up the hole enough where he could get through it? If it wasn't a hold, would he have made that play? That's something you got to look at, and I'll go back and see it myself. You just gotta. That's something you got to consider too. Like, if the hold happened on his side, did it help him make the play? And if it did, probably wouldn't have made it if that hold wasn't there, and it wasn't going to happen anyways.
Yeah. Well, and let's talk about a bright spot. How about that wide receiver room? I think we've started to figure out who are the guys. No surprise, Jalil Farouk is a guy. He is a go-to now. He's getting comfortable. I think there was just a little bit of hiccups in the beginning. Andrew Anthony is the guy. I mean, he seems to be on the same page with Dylan Gabriel. Seems to be the number 1 guy. Nick Anderson, I mean, talk about a guy that's dealt with some injuries, a little bit of setbacks, similar to his older brother Rodney. I mean, he looks good. Being at that, and what is he listed at 6'4", I believe, having that bigger receiver, that's Oklahoma's been missing that. And getting him to be a contributor now, that's great. And of course, Drake Stoops, that's not a shock to me either. I mean, the targets are the threats are plentiful for Oklahoma in the wide receiver room. The one downfall and who I thought would be more involved in catching more balls is Stogner. I don't know. I figured he was going to be somewhat similar to, maybe not quite a Mark Andrews, but I figured by now he would be more involved in the passing game.
Yeah, I don't know. They use him a lot to block, and clearly he's talented. But I think when you look at Levy's offense, it goes super fast, lending more to his jet sweeps, bubble screens, or these big plays. And again, people criticize for no plays down the middle of the field. They're making plays all throughout the field in the pass game. I think the wide receivers look good. Like Emmett Jones, again, we've said it for a while now, not just in the recruiting front, but he's showing that he was the right hire to improve this wide receiver room. And then including the recruiting front, this wide receiver room will have plenty of talent to pick from and have plenty of depth moving forward. Nick Anderson coming in and starting to really ball is a great thing to see, especially since he's a younger guy. Because then you look forward into next year and even the year after, he may be the guy that becomes a number 1 receiver here in a year or two, because he'll have more reps. You assume he's going to get better, stronger, a little faster, clean up his route running a little bit, would be better just overall. Jaden Gibson also gets in there and gets those contested balls. This wide receiver room starting to look for real. And again, Dylan Gabriel is getting the ball to him where they need to have it. They make plays, especially in the open field. These wide receivers are very good at doing that, especially Nick Anderson. I think has shown he's probably one of the better guys to make plays in the open field. And Jarrell Anthony just takes the top off the defense. They have no answer other than to just pass interfere.
They don't, and it's I mean, that one pass was 50 yards or something. Andrew Anthony went and got in the contested catch. I mean, that was he's everything as advertised coming out of Michigan, and it's kind of surprising to me that his best year at Michigan was like 300 yards, something like that. Granted, Michigan doesn't throw it nearly as much as Oklahoma does, but you know, did I think a whole lot of Andrew Anthony when he first transferred to Oklahoma? Not gonna lie, not necessarily. I didn't think he'd immediately come in and be, you know, the number one guy, or I guess him and Farouk are 1A, 1B. You know, they're both very comfortable with Gabriel. Gabriel's getting the ball to him. I'm just impressed with the way he's played, and you know, if he continues the way, you know, the first 4 games are, and he continues this for the rest of the season, he's going to be gone. He's going to the NFL. I mean, which I don't blame him, and that's honestly the best thing for Oklahoma, because we talk about so much depth in this room. The best thing that could ever happen to Oklahoma, as far as to let these young guys come up, is you've got Andrew Anthony go in the draft, hopefully second, third round, or maybe even first to continue, you know, depending on how well he plays. Jalil Farouk, he'll have an opportunity to go to pro as well, and Drake Stoops will be gone. So those 3 spots that you're going to open up to the young bucks of Jaquez Petaway, you know, Nick Anderson. Nick Anderson could step in and be the number 1 guy next year, and you've got all these, you know, this giant class coming in behind. Honestly, a great showing for Farouk, and Anthony will be great and will bolster their recruiting in the 2025 class to get maybe another 4 or 5 star, maybe 1 or 2 more. So good stuff. And a little bit on Dylan Gabriel. At the end of the day, it is what it is. I think part of it is also he doesn't feel totally comfortable back, you know, passing. I do feel like he's still trying to figure out his way in that offensive line. You know, there's been a little inconsistency there. Not at that left guard position. Seems like he's a little uncomfortable running Dylan Gabriel. I understand now Oklahoma feels a little more comfortable with that idea because they've got Jackson Arnold there. I get it. Still hold my breath every single time he runs. So yes, Marvin Mims, that looks great for Oklahoma as well. He, as bad as the Broncos are, he's the lone bright spot for him. I mean, in the punt return position and taking the top off the defense, Mims looks great.
Yeah, and Urban Engine, honestly, it wasn't because I was scared to say it. My brain just decided to stop working, and I couldn't put those letters together properly in my head. Yeah, I'll say it moving forward. I think there's really only 2 passes that I can recall where, like, okay, Dylan should have had him, and it was the deep, wide open to, I think it was Jalil, right?
It was Farouk, yeah.
Middle of the field, down, you know, it would have been an easy touchdown. That one he should have made. And then the fade to Jaden Gibson. That one, I think if you were to ask Lebby, he probably doesn't have that much of a problem where he placed the ball, because the idea was just to get it as far away from the defender as possible and still trying to give his guy a chance. He put it a little bit too far, but if he maybe gets a little bit more air under it, it's right where Jaden Gibson needs it.
Yeah, and that is true. That one in the corner and that fade, I remember saying, man, you got to put a little more, you know, you got to get a little closer to him, give him a shot. And it's hard to be perfect. And I think part of it also is the fact that we, as much as we don't like Lincoln Riley, and I understand, his offenses were historic for Oklahoma. And they operated at the highest of levels and efficiency levels. So when you are expecting that, any little misstep, you get frustrated with. And I totally understand. Dylan Gabriel isn't Caleb Williams. I mean, Caleb Williams is by far the best player, at least, or quarterback in college football right now. And when you've got a quarterback like that, that helps for sure. So I think Dylan Gabriel will only get better this year, especially going into Iowa State this weekend. They should handle their business going 5-0, going into Texas. The Texas game, you're going to find out what this team's made of. And as much as it's Texas at the end of the day, you think they'll choke and whatnot. There's plenty of talent. There's a lot of NFL talent that Texas has got. You're going to know what you have in Dylan Gabriel. And if Oklahoma, and I saw the comment about OU as a potential playoff team, the Texas game is the measuring stick. If Oklahoma goes in and beats Texas, Oklahoma immediately becomes a heavy favorite to make the playoffs this year, considering the weak schedule in the back end here.
What's going to be good or interesting too is what happens after the Texas game, because Oklahoma had a bad stretch last year, but when you look back historically and over the last 10 years pre last year, Texas has been pretty good leading up to that OU Texas game, and then regardless of the result of that game, they fall off. It happened last year too. They kicked our ass. They're gonna happily remind us come that week 49-0. They only won one more game than Oklahoma during the regular season last year, and they thought they were back. And they're very talented, but it was only one game better than Oklahoma, and Oklahoma had a really bad season. Oklahoma, on the other hand, regardless of the result of that Texas game, typically continues to improve. This is a new regime. This is a new season. Can that trend stay the same? I hope so. They do have what are now seemingly becoming some tougher games, especially on the road. But if Texas does what Texas normally does, they might win Red River, but then they're going to fall off in the second half. And even if they make the Big 12 championship, I like Oklahoma's chances in the Oklahoma Invitational, especially in the last year of it.
Yeah, I would love to see Oklahoma and Texas play in the Big 12 championship, just because it'd be like, here's the final hoorah. Both the teams that are leaving are playing your conference championship game. There would be a little bit of irony and a little fun. It'd be a little funny to see that. So, but we can't overlook Iowa State. Obviously, I mean that game. It's nice that it's going to be at night. It was at 6 o'clock kick. It's going to allow some recruits to come into town, right?
Yep.
And recruiting weekend. We love the 6 o'clock kick because trying to get up to Norman for an 11 a.m. kick when you have a high school game in southern Texas or wherever you're at is really tough. So,
and
I'd be curious to see who shows up.
Well, we know one guy, two guys, maybe three guys. Jordan Seaton, 4, and in some places 5-star offensive tackle out of IMG Academy. David Stone last week, after the OU game, said he's tired of watching him on TV. He's also going to be there. It's going to be pretty nice to have our 5-star defensive lineman recruit his teammate in high 4-star / 5-star offensive tackle in Jordan Seaton. It definitely seems like an uphill battle on that one, just because that one kind of came out of nowhere not that long ago. But if Oklahoma can put a good performance on the field, David Stone does what he did for OU with Jaden Jackson, I like Oklahoma's chances. And you still have Coach B. And you're seemingly gaining momentum in another Florida offensive lineman in Eddie Pierre-Louis. OU picked up 2 crystal balls from the OU Insider guys. I've always liked Eddie Pierre-Louis. We've talked about him for over a year now since he got his offer. He said Oklahoma was his dream offer. If you watch him play, dude is a freaky athlete, especially for a guy his size. He runs track and is faster than some of those guys that are probably 130 pounds lighter than him.
He is a ridiculous athlete, and he would be a tremendous kid. I think we need to dive into this because this is really pretty true as far as how many players Oklahoma's got on the board. They did offer, what was in last week, they offered, is it Reggie Powers that was once committed to Michigan State and has since decommitted. But really,
Yep.
the big 7 targets here is pretty accurate from what Oklahoma's got. To me, I agree with you. Jordan Seaton seems to be a little bit of a long shot. What truly can Oklahoma truly do this? Potentially, but it doesn't hurt that you've got 2 of his teammates committed in Jaden Jackson and David Stone. Could Oklahoma pull a rabbit out of the hat? Maybe. But if I were a betting man, no. You agree with that? I think he goes elsewhere.
With Reggie Powers?
Or no, Jordan Seaton.
Jordan Seaton? Yeah, probably. Just because it seems like he came out of nowhere. Like, I didn't even know Oklahoma was recruiting that hard. I'm sure they were recruiting him, but hard enough where he is taking official visit to him. But he can also take unlimited official visits now, so it's probably why he waited till the season to start doing them.
True. Michael Boganowski. Him and Grant Bree, or as I like to call him, Grant Bricks, are the 2 guys, and I've been saying about Grant Bricks for probably close to a month now, at least 3 weeks. I think Grant Bricks is staying closer to home and going to Nebraska. I think Michael Boganowski is staying at home and going to Kansas State too. I think the longer these have drug out, the worse it is for Oklahoma, because they obviously both know that Oklahoma is the best place to go. Their brain's telling them that. But I think their heart's telling them to stay closer to home. And I think at the end of the day, that's what's going to be the ultimate decision, is if their heart's not in it, then I don't think that they're going to be coming to Oklahoma. Could that change? Of course. But to me, I think both Boganowski and Bricks go elsewhere. Am I off? What do you think?
No, I think you're right. More than likely have a better shot with Bricks than Boganowski, because Kansas State's actually doing pretty well, and I think it's going to be easier to convince him to go to K-State, because if any team is going to take over the Big 12, it's going to be them in the near future once Oklahoma leaves. So you got that under their belt, closer to home. I think it makes more sense, with how things are turning out, that he ends up there rather than Oklahoma, as much as that sucks. Then Oklahoma's still going after Devin Jordan out of Union, and like you mentioned, Reggie Powers, who just decommitted from Michigan State. So it's not like they're short of safeties they're recruiting. Would they love to get Boganowski? Yeah. They've recruited him this hard for this long. They're not going to give up just because it's taking forever for him to finally make his decision. At the end of the day, it's his decision to make. He has until December really to make that decision if he's going to be an early enrollee. I would say that Daniel Akinkumi, the guy from the NFL Academy in England, OU also has a good shot at that. So what seemed to be a very thin O-line group is probably going to end up being 3 guys going into the year, maybe 4, which still isn't a lot. But last year, what did we get, 4? And that felt like a decent haul. And it was probably guys that are a little bit higher rated, including Caden Green. But if you get, let's just say they pull something out of their ass and they get Jordan Seaton, and then you sprinkle in Daniel Akinkumi, I think is how you say it. That's a decent offensive line group.
And you throw in Eddie Pierre-Louis. I agree. I think Daniel from the NFL Academy, I like where Oklahoma sits there. I like where Devin Jordan sits with Oklahoma as well, being in Tulsa Union High School. And then Eddie Pierre-Louis, I feel good about him as well. And I think you throw Daniel and Eddie Pierre-Louis in this class, all of a sudden the offensive line class looks pretty darn good. And obviously if you add Grant Bricks, or Seaton, that's just the cherry on top here. But Eddie Pierre-Louis and Daniel from the NFL Academy, I feel good about. Terry Busey, he announces the 28th, I believe it is. So today is Tuesday the 26th, so he should be announcing Thursday. Seems to be basically Oklahoma, Texas, Texas A&M, LSU. I think Oklahoma is second or third. I think the amount of wide receivers that are committed to Oklahoma makes it really tough. I still think Texas A&M is ultimately the decision here. I think Oklahoma's giving him a lot to think about. If Texas A&M, if he does commit to him, and Texas A&M kind of goes off the rails later this year, maybe Oklahoma can circle the wagons and go back and revisit this. I don't know. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. Think of any school around the country that's more than likely going to lose these really talented recruits that they're getting. It's A&M. Because I get that they're paying a boatload of money in the NIL front. But if it's those really talented kids like Terry or those 5-star defensive linemen that they got like Dominic McKinley, they're going to get paid anywhere they go. But it doesn't look like they can win anything at A&M. Not their division, definitely not the SEC, sometimes not even 6 games. So, we talked about Clemson earlier and how they are. I wouldn't bet on them losing a lot of recruits because they have one bad season. A&M isn't having one bad season. Since NIL, they've recruited very well and haven't really. It's only been, I guess, a year. But even this year, you don't look at them and you're like, wow, they can compete for their side of the SEC. I don't think anyone thinks that. I don't even know if people think they're going to be an 8-win football team this year. Might be better than 5 that they were last year, but sure as hell not going to be 9 or 10. And I don't know if they have another bad year, do kids start looking elsewhere? Not just high school recruits, but the guys currently on the roster. I'm not trying to get anyone's hopes up and say, Dindy and Hicks and Overton and all these 5-star defensive linemen are going to hit the portal. I don't think that's true either. But you will more than likely start hearing a lot of things come December that some of these guys are starting to get a little frustrated with not winning.
Yeah. Like Garrett Bowles for the offensive lineman for the Broncos is like, I've been here for 7 years and all I do is lose. So eventually it wears on you. So, I mean, out of the 7 targets who, as of today, my gut, Daniel from the NFL Academy, Devin Jordan, Andy Pierre-Louis, I think are your 4 or are your 3. Excuse me, I can't count. I think you can count on 3 more commits here. Maybe Oklahoma pulls Boganowski, but I'm just not holding my breath. I've learned over the last few years if there's a holdup like this, there's a reason behind it, and it just there's something holding them back. It's either you're in or you're out, and eventually you can't make that decision. That decision will be made for you, and Oklahoma's going to have to go recruit someone else. And that's just kind of the nature of the beast, because you got to fill spots, and that's just unfortunate.
And even though they're still recruiting Boganowski, I think that the fact that they diverted their attention to Reggie Powers shows that there may, even though there still is confidence in them being able to get Boganowski, they're prepared to move away and go a different direction. And Reggie Powers is a talented safety as well. He plays a little bit more like Reggie Pearson, where he's downhill. He's going to go be more of a run support guy, that type of safety. Not a bad guy to have, because Peyton Bowen, the star, I guess, the young star of the defensive back group, more so a pass defender.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, I got to take a second we're over 160 people right now. If you're new here, be sure to like and subscribe. I think we're 69 subscribers away from 6,000 now. There's only one person was able to subscribe the last time I mentioned this. So hit the button. It's easy, free, subscribe, turn the notification bell on, follow us on all of our social medias. Everything's linked in the description below. And for everyone that just joined, Jose, you want to show the shirt? Plug the shirt?
I got you. Here's the front.
So our shirt.
We talk about every time.
Yeah, Two Plane Sports, Gamedays in Norman. Brandon likes to say things that don't suck. So it's down in the description below, and definitely go get your own for that. So What do you think? Do we take a couple questions and kind of finish this up? I did see one. I feel like, oh, whoop, sorry. This one right here.
The all-important question.
Oh, man. Obviously in an ideal world they would, right?
Yeah.
If Oklahoma gets him on campus for a visit, there's a chance. But at the end of the day, if you were not able to get him to commit when he was not committed anywhere, it becomes that much harder to convince him to call the program that he's committed to, decommit, and flip to you. And when he had the opportunity to do that the first time.
Yeah. I mean, I just... This might be a situation like Luther Burden. Like, they just really want to be closer to home. And, yeah, NIL is probably going to help them a ton. But I don't really think that it's going to be that big a deal. And if anything, like, hyper-focusing on a couple of these 5 stars, I think, is you can see it with Colorado. I know people hate bringing them up, but if you guys didn't see, Dion was asked about Cormani McLean, who was the number 1 defensive back in last year's class. I guess that kid doesn't go to the meetings, and when he does, he doesn't show up on time, he doesn't study. And it's what Todd Bates had said last year during the 2022 recruiting cycle. The 5-star that hurts you the most isn't the guy you don't get. It's the guy that you do get and ends up being, a bad student of the game, a bad student, not a good culture fit, whatever it is. Just because it's a 5-star doesn't mean he's going to be a superstar. Luckily, the guys that they have brought in that were 5-stars look to be trending that way. And not that Williams Neri can't be that guy, but, if you don't get him, it's not the end of the world. You got David Stone, you got Danny Okoye, you have Nigel Smith, White, Gilmore. This defensive line class is great itself. This would be kind of like the running back situation when Taylor Tatum and why am I forgetting the other running back's name right now?
Anything talking about Caden Durham?
Nope. Well, yeah, I was talking about him, but the guy we actually got to commit, Xavier Robinson. When they committed, Caden Durham just became, what the sprinkles for the running back recruiting situation. He wasn't a must-have or must-get because we already had 2 very talented running backs in the class. Williams Neri has become that. You have a very talented defensive line group already. He would just be the icing on top for the defensive line room. Would love to have him. Doesn't. And yeah, sucks that we didn't get him initially. Not the end of the world that we don't have him.
No, I mean, that defensive line haul as it stands today is elite. And it's one of the best Oklahoma's had in a long time.
And Danny Okoye, if it wasn't for the injury that slowed him down and to start the season, I think would have a serious argument in being a 5-star at the end of this recruiting cycle.
Yeah. When Nick Saban says you're the best one at the camp, you're good.
Yep.
He kind of reminds me of PJ Adebore, where PJ had that meteoric rise from a 3-star all the way up to the 5-star and one of the best defensive linemen in the country. Okoye is so raw and so talented. He has that kind of ceiling in him too, just because, he plays at the homeschool team. So could you imagine if he was at a bigger high school like a Union, Broken Arrow, or a Wasso or Jinx, playing at those facilities, working out, could it be a little bit different? And then also once he gets on campus, man, he's going to have an extremely high ceiling. So Williams Neri would obviously be nice. He's the cherry on top or the sprinkles, like you said. Not holding my breath. If it happens, great. If not, it is what it is. He's just going to Missouri, and we've seen Luther Burden there, and he plays well, but it's Missouri. So, and I know they're 4-0 right now, but it's Missouri. It is what it is. So,
yeah.
Let's see.
We can take this last question because I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
I I do seriously think Oklahoma can be a playoff contender this year. And by playoff contender, obviously meaning they can be one of the 4 teams to compete for the national championship. Will they? We said it earlier, the Texas game is the measuring stick. Will it be competitive? Can they win? Obviously, that we still got a couple weeks before we know that for sure. But again, this Dylan Gabriel slander is absurd. Dude misses a couple passes and now he's terrible. For the most part, he's completing. He has one of the highest clips when it comes to completion percentage. Hasn't thrown less than 300 yards in a game this season. Has only thrown 1 pick. Like, if you expect him to have 100% completion percentage, you're never going to be happy with any quarterback. Now, you probably hated Baker Mayfield too because he had less than 100%. Kyler Murray had less than 100%. Jalen Hurts, all Heisman finalists. If Dylan Gabriel somehow becomes a Heisman finalist at the end of the year, I think you're going to see a lot of these people say maybe he was the guy. And then you also have the anticipation of the 5-star Jackson Arnold behind him, and people think it's going to go from 72% completion percentage to 85 or something. Not how it works. Dylan Jackson's going to overthrow some guys occasionally. He's going to have some misses. It happens. You play it's sports. It's not a video game where you put it on rookie mode and complete every pass. These guys are competing on the other side of the ball too.
Just call 4 verticals and just throw it down the field, and that's all you could do on rookie mode. Rookie mode. Do I think Oklahoma? Yeah, I do think they are playoff contenders. We'll know what this team really is made of once they play Texas. But when you look across college football, there isn't really a team that has separated themselves from the pack. I mean, you look at Georgia. Georgia gave up, 3 touchdowns to UAB. They messed around with South Carolina. Michigan, similar to Oklahoma, hasn't played anyone, but they haven't scored more than 35 points in any game. You look at Texas. Yeah, Texas had an impressive win, went on the road at Alabama. How good is Alabama? I don't know. They're going to be middle of the pack. They'll win most of their games. Ohio State won on literally as time expired against Notre Dame. Florida State's been in 2 back-to-back battles. How much have they really separated? And Southern Cal can't play defense. There's an opportunity for Oklahoma here, and they're good enough to do that. I mean, it isn't like a couple years ago when Georgia had all those first-round picks playing on defense. There isn't a team that is so far, head and shoulders above everyone else. There are probably about 8 teams that could play for the national championship this year, and including Washington. I forgot Washington. Michael Penix is really good. I think Washington's pretty solid.
If any team in college football has separated themselves from the Packers starting to separate themselves, I would say it's Washington. Is that offense I am starting to slowly, and I'm trying to not over exaggerate when I watch football every Saturday. Penix is starting to look more and more like the best quarterback in the Heisman winner come end of the year. Because when you watch Caleb Williams, he makes some amazing plays. But he has to hold on to the ball for a long time because his offensive line can't block for shit, even against these schools that are significantly less talented than what Southern Cal has. But Michael Penix looks steady in the pocket. He's making reads. He's not having to wait until the wide receiver is wide open to make the play. And Caleb can do the same, but I don't know. Maybe you can check it out this Saturday and just watch maybe you'll watch the Colorado game and then check out the Washington game, and maybe you'll tell me I'm stupid. But it just looks like Michael Penix is reading a defense and putting the ball where it needs to be, rather than Caleb this year looks more like he's having to scramble and wait till the wide receiver is wide open because he's getting no time.
Yeah, I mean, Penix is good. The thing that's going to hold Washington back, the same thing it's going to hold USC back, is their defense. They gave up Washington gave up 32 points to Cal. Cal's not a good team. USC gave up 28 to Arizona State.
And they almost lost.
And they almost lost, and they're not good. So
Arizona State had 2 costly turnovers at the end of the game that basically let USC pull away. Like, that was a one possession game for a while.
yeah. So with all that being said, I do think Oklahoma's a playoff contender. I think as long as Oklahoma, even if Oklahoma loses Red River, goes and plays Texas in the Big 12 championship and win the Big 12 championship, I think there's going to be enough teams that have 1 loss and maybe 2 losses that Oklahoma's still going to have a shot to go play for a playoff and go play for the national championship as long as they win the Big 12 title. So yeah, I feel good drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm all in. I think they take care of business this weekend against Iowa State in preparation for Texas, but could be a game where they get caught looking ahead a touch too. But I think this team's mature enough to realize that. So
I don't believe too much in trap games, but if there was ever a trap game for Oklahoma this season, it's Iowa State.
they've lost before at home against the Cyclones. Granted, that was with Brock Purdy and a little bit better of a team. But that's all I've got. I mean, and then I saw one question. We gave up McKinnon and Durant. Yeah, that's Xavier Sims. He's going to Oregon. He's gone. Nate, Eddie Pierre-Louis, Bricks, and Daniel. I feel good about Eddie Pierre-Louis and Daniel from the NFL Academy. I don't feel good about Bricks, in my opinion. But anyway, so do you have anything else, or should we do the like and subscribe? So 170 plus people in here, knocking the door at 200. Not bad for a random Tuesday. New here, be sure to like the video, subscribe, turn that notification bell on so you know when we go live or post a video. Follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Spotify. Everything's linked in the description below. And then also go buy a shirt. That's linked in the description. It's like $24 for short sleeve, $27 for long sleeve, I think it is. Go on there. Good shirts, good quality. Go check it out. So we will catch you guys next time and for a video, we're previewing the game.